Welcome to another episode of the Under the Pines podcast. I'm your host, Max Emanuel, and today's guest is Vishrant, a reality teacher from Perth in Australia. He's a contemporary mystic who offers a pragmatic path to higher consciousness, and his approach deals with the mind and the heart at the same time. In this conversation, he shares his transformative journey from a gang leader to a successful businessman and eventually a seeker of love and spirituality, all while serving hard. He was also a student of Osho, and we spoke about transformation, addiction, spirituality, personal growth, the importance of mentorship, and of course, psychedelics. So let's jump right in. Okay, excellent. Hello, Vishrant. Thank you for taking the time.
Hello.
So, yeah, just how we started a couple minutes before, we had already similarities in our, let's say, turning points in life. Maybe I want to start there because one of your turning points at 19 was quite early. Like, how did that come about? Because, like, to me, that's at least in my case, that was an age where I was, focused on all the wrong things, let's say.
Okay. So I was running a street gang in Perth. I was the leader of the gang, and I was an enforcer. And I had a girlfriend who eventually became my wife, and she got involved with a group of people who she worked near who were running encounter groups. And she used her money to buy an encounter group, which was I think it was $400 or $700, but this is back in 1973, so that was a lot of money back then. And she'd given them this money for a 4-day live-in retreat, encounter group it turned out to be. And I didn't agree with it, and she wanted to get out of it, so I went along to these guys who had taken the money off her, and I demanded the money back. And they said, no, we're not going to give you the money back. And I said, well, you better give it back, otherwise you're going to cop a beating right now. And they responded to that with saying, what if you can do it and we'll give it to you for free? And I said, no, I want the money back. And then they said something interesting, because I was a bit of my own hero back in those days. They said, what are you frightened of? And I went, I'm not frightened of anything. Well, why don't you do the group? Okay, I'll do the group. So I booked myself in to this 4-day live-in retreat, which is an encounter group. And on the first day, they have you write out, it's basically a psych profile. And then when I attended the group, it was, I think it was a Saturday night, something like that, and all the lights go out and the room's dark and there's 25 people in the group in a horseshoe. And the lights come on to me and someone in front of me wearing a suit but in the dark, it says, you arsehole, get out here. And that's how the group began. And these guys, there was 4 of them, worked on me for 12 hours using my psych profile to have a go at my personality. And at some point, they got me. And they got me because I'd weakened after 12 hours of encounter. And this little lady put her arm around me and said, you know, when I feel into you, all I feel is rock. There's nothing there. There's no human there. You're a rock. And I realized at that point it was true. That's where my life had brought me to. I had become a street fighter and a gang leader, and it was because I was so hard and harsh. And somehow that broke my heart when I saw that. And that was the beginning of a brand new life. Because after I finished that group, I realized I didn't want to be involved in gangs anymore. And so I put on a 3-piece suit and I went to work for that group, selling their group to people who were interested in doing group therapy. And that was the big change. And it was huge. I never said hello to the gang members again. It was such a big change.
Well, that's excellent at that age. I mean, probably not a lot of people are able to switch back then. At that age,
Well,
like that's crazy.
at that age, I was wearing black and a studded belt, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and a leather jacket because I was a bikie.
Sure. How did you end up in gang life? What was your childhood like rough? Did you have both parents growing up?
No, I was put in boarding school at a very young age, and I used to escape boarding school at night time and go to the local barbecue area under a bridge, and that's where I met the gangs. And
Okay.
and I got invited into them, and at night time I'd go out, escape from school and go out and hang out with them. And my other place that I used to live when I wasn't in boarding school was down at Bunbury with my grandparents because my parents didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I'd hang out down there, and I started hanging out with the street boys down there when I was 12. And they were all 18, 19, and they had hotted up cars, and I became the mascot of their gang. And that's how I entered the gang life as a little kid, just fascinated by these older guys who were really cool. Well, I thought they were really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, at that age for sure. I mean, that's how we grow up with all these movies and martial arts, right? And then Bruce Lee and fighting is cool and all that good stuff, right? And then on the other hand, like, so you were in boarding school, and obviously that system failed you in a sense because you wanted to escape, right? Like you wanted to get out of there. Like there was nothing interesting for you in there.
Yeah, there was one thing interesting, martial arts. I did martial arts. I started when I was about, I think, 11. I started martial arts, Kung Fu, and I finished when I was 24 training. But I trained every day, and I love martial arts. And that's probably what also led me into the gang life to some degree as well, because there was a level of violence in it. And I was an angry young man because I had been abandoned by my parents. And I was taking it out on the world in a way.
Yeah, understandably. Yeah, what is it that you think that's so interesting about martial art? Because me as well, it helped me a lot. Like, you know, I had a lot to do with like substance abuse and alcohol in my 20s, and it took me a while to get out of it. But martial art was definitely a big part of it. Just that focus, that determination, right? Like all that coming together, and like you excel at something, it makes you feel good, right? Like you get, you know, all these good traits with it. What was it for you? What did it like do for you back then?
It turned me into a weapon.
Yeah.
And I became a weapon, and I stopped being a weapon when I was 24, when in a fight I nearly killed a man, and I felt so much regret I couldn't continue training even.
Oh, wow. So you stopped completely?
Stopped completely. But I trained at that age, at 24, nearly 14 years I'd been in training. And the next time I got attacked, I was a Rajneesh Sannyasin. I was wearing orange. I was out in the streets of Fremantle, and a gang of bikies decided to attack me. This was like 6 years later, and I put 5 of them in hospital.
That's what happens.
They picked the wrong orange person.
Yeah. Just because your aura was way too calm for them, they didn't think they were gonna get that right.
They got a big surprise.
Okay, and then you went into business. Was that
Well, I went into business
switch,
when
right?
I was 24.
Yeah.
I got a job with a publisher selling advertising space, and I was very, very good at it. I was promised the job as manager as a result, and the job as manager didn't come forward. He gave the management job to his son-in-law, which was fair enough. But I decided that I didn't want to work for him anymore, so I started my own publishing company with a partner who had a bit of money, and I learned how to raise funds because you need a lot of money to run publishing companies. And so I had people out there collecting money for football clubs and soccer clubs and cricket clubs, you name it. And that money came in, and I was able to use that money to start a publishing company. And within, I think, something like 4 years, I retired because I'd made so much money out of publishing. I was so successful at publishing, I'd retired at 28.
Yeah. And then you had another turning point around that age, right?
Yeah, that was when I made the big mistake of going to a Rajneesh organised encounter group. And during that group, I had this kind of vision of Osho down a tunnel calling me, and I came. And he was this three-piece suit businessman suddenly taking sannyas, suddenly putting red clothes on, orange clothes on, and wearing a mala with the picture of a guru. And all my friends thought I'd gone insane. My family thought I'd gone insane. Nobody I knew supported what I was doing, particularly my sales staff. I had 14 offices, and the sales staff were in these 14 offices. Every office ended up with a 6-foot picture of Osho in it because they didn't like it. So being the shit stirrer I was, I put a picture up in every office.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because for me, a big turning point was around my Saturn return at 29.
Yeah,
so it's definitely a big, very big one for me.
Yeah, same. So it's 28, 29 is when I took sannyas. Yeah, It is a huge change, not a small change. Whole direction of life changed to a spiritual life rather than a life of success in the financial world.
Yeah, with me, it was through pain. I was like in so much pain. I had nerve pain, basically rock bottom. Like that was my rock bottom. Yeah.
Why did you have nerve pain?
It was an old neck injury. I didn't even know about. Yeah. From, I was doing all that crazy stuff when I was younger, like snowboarding and, like accidents with the race bike. And I had no idea that I had it. And then, because of like all the pressure, the emotional pressure and everything came together. And then
you rode
no, that was a race bike. No, just a bicycle. Yeah. The race bikes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was lucky, and my dad told me when I was super young, he's like, the only thing I don't want you to do is go on a motorcycle. That's the only thing. Yeah, probably would have killed me because I had a lot of car accidents in my 20s as well, like 2 big ones, and probably would have killed me with the bike.
I used to race motorbikes, mostly against the police.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So then you had another turning point at 33, which is for me my kind of year when I gave up the substances like the last final time, right? That was like my kind of, let's say, moment when my life really changed. What do you think around that age? Like, why is it? Like, because I hear it a lot with people, especially with people that have these big changes. Why is it 33? Yeah.
It was monumental for me because I realized what I discovered at the age of 33 is that I didn't have much heart, if any. I was lacking love. And I'd been very successful in business, but being very successful in business, I'd become a warrior, a businessman warrior. And I'd cut myself off from my own heart. And I had realized that it's the only thing that's valuable here. There's nothing else valuable here but love. And I wasn't in touch with it. So I felt like I'd wasted 33 years of my life pursuing financial success and whatever else. And I'd missed my own heart. So I felt bankrupt, even though I was physically very wealthy at that time. And so what I did is I decided that I wanted to find my heart. So I walked into my companies, gave my staff my companies, including the 14 offices full of furniture, and walked out basically broke. I gave all the money that was owed to me to my debt collector, and he started a debt collection company with that. And I walked out broke, took my shoes off, and basically walked around Australia barefoot for 4 years in search of my heart. And to do that, I had to become a nobody because as a businessman, I'd become this huge somebody who was successful at a young age, who had all the toys, the Porsches, the yachts, the Flybridge cruisers, the penthouses. And man, there's nothing there. It's a lie. We get lied to. There's nothing at the top. Just a bunch of greedy old men trying to make more money. So, so that was the first time I actually tried drugs. And I tried the drug ecstasy. And it was wonderful because it made me experience my heart, because it took my defenses down. And I realized at that point that if you take your defenses down without drugs, you can experience heart. And that was my big motivator. I just wanted more love in my life because I realized that was the only valuable thing here.
Yeah, some powerful stuff there. I mean, with me, it was a lot different. I tried drugs very early, before uni even, I would say, like 18, I think, so all started. And then all throughout my 20s. And basically my first son was my catalyst to change. I always knew like I was doing the wrong things, but why? Because I didn't fit in anyways, right? Like that whole system wasn't for me. I had money in my 20s, like I didn't really have worries on that end. And so I was traveling a lot, doing all that stuff, and in the end, my child changed me for the better. Definitely was the last catalyst.
Yeah, well, that was one of the big things. I had a child, and when I held this baby in my arms for the first time, because I helped birth it, I felt this unconditional love everywhere again for everything. And I realized this is what I want to pursue. I want to pursue this love because it's so beautiful and it's nothing like I've ever experienced before. And so,
it's such an important pillar.
It was my child. Yeah.
Such an important pillar in a man's life. Like, we have a problem on that end, I would say, in humanity, because people are scared and afraid of becoming parents, right? And maybe some shouldn't, but I think to really feel yourself, to really become a man, I think it's a big pillar in our lives. Right? As you just said, it changes us in a very profound way.
It does. I actually weren't trying to have children. All three of my children were accidents. I was told each time that it was safe, but it wasn't. But once the pregnancy was announced by my wife, it's like, okay, that's what it is. I accept that. I'm not going to get in the way. I'm going to support it. And so I did. Because it would be unmanly to do anything other than that,
Yeah, definitely.
One of the things that I got when I was in the gangs is, unless you're a man, you're not respectable. And men take care of others. That's what they do. They take care of other people. They take care of the weak, the old, the young, the handicapped. They take care. It's part of being manhood, and their word has to be worth something. What they say, they have to follow through with. And so I embraced that on the streets of Perth.
Well, it got you far, right? But in the end, what's the true essence?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of if you embrace manhood, you can demand respect. If you can't embrace manhood, if you're an immature prick, you can't embrace manhood, and you won't get respect from others. And business, like everything else, runs on respect. If your staff don't respect you, they're going to sabotage you. If your clients don't respect you, they're going to sabotage you. It's all about respect. Even in the spiritual world, it's about respect.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the thing that I saw with, the society that I kind of, ended up in my late 20s, and once again back home, so to speak, in Germany. And it was difficult for me, especially during COVID, because I was lacking that, with my surroundings. Nobody was respecting my choices and my thought processes in my life, right? Like everyone was trying to push their agenda on me, right? Like, and especially when you're in the city, it's very difficult to breathe, right? Like you have no way, like to live your life that way, right? So, the only plausible kind of solution was to get out of there.
You're going to love this. When I decided that I wanted to serve hard after walking around Australia for 4 years barefoot, I went back to university and trained as a naturopath and psychotherapist. And I
Yeah.
became an addictions counselor, helping people who had addictions get off the drugs. 6 years I did that for.
Beautiful. Yeah, didn't know that it was addiction. I knew that you went back to uni, but that's kind of my path at the moment as well. Like that's why I'm, digressing into.
Well, I wanted some tools that I could help
Yeah.
people with, because I didn't want to teach business, because that's a heartless world. I wanted to help people with their problems. And so I trained as a naturopath. I could help people with their health. Trained as a psychotherapist. I could help them with their minds. And that was the intention. And it was great. I loved it.
Yeah. What would you say were like some of the, let's say, pillars that you learned there? Was that really like, could you have learned that by yourself as well? Would you say like all that knowledge that you
No,
got there? No.
I don't think so. I needed to study it under the guidance of people who were further ahead than me. It's arrogance to think you can do it by yourself. Like I've had mentors my whole life. Ever since I was 19, I got these mentors who are running the encounter groups. And then I
Yeah.
did a lot of business motivation seminars. I had an encounter, and I had mentors all the way through. And it's only arrogant people who think they know that don't have mentors, and usually they fail because they don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
So I took
What what
advice from
what I
people.
meant Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but what I meant to say was like more because like for me, university was kind of a waste of time. Like I'm all for mentors, I'm all for teachers, but in some way, I think I always have to look for them myself, or they, I attract them, or they come to me in some way, and then that's who I learn best from. But like just to go into an institution was always weird for me. I never got like that interaction that I needed in these places.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
With psychotherapy, that's experiential. It's not blackboard learning, which suited my mind down to the ground, because I prefer experiential learning, where you were being taken apart in a group, and that was fun.
yeah.
Encounter therapy, basically.
So, what do you feel like was the best way for you to get through to an addict? Like what were those mechanisms that you learned, and
I had to get them to
how did that
see the
come about?
price of their addiction, what it was costing
Mm,
them, what it was costing their mum, what it was costing their dad, what was costing their family, how expensive the addiction had become. And usually people don't give up addictions unless they've hit rock bottom. And at rock bottom, they're looking around and say, well, I've wrecked it all. Is there any way that I can recover this? And that's where I came in, to help them recover and to keep them on the straight and narrow so they didn't go back. And heck, I failed so many times it wasn't funny, but I just kept trying. Addiction is a terrible thing.
yeah,
It ruins
it's your life.
relationships.
Yeah,
It
it's your
ruins
life at that
life.
moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whether it was heroin, whether it was amphetamine, ketamine, didn't make much difference. It's all the same
Mm,
stuff. It's dream. People are addicted to dream. They're addicted to consciousness change. They're addicted to escapism,
yeah,
escaping something inside themselves for a dream that some drug might give them. And so that was very, in one way, very rewarding, and another way, very heartbreaking, because of the number of failures. Because addicts quite often go back.
yeah. It's not up to you as a therapist, right? Like you
No,
do your best. They have to
no.
decide in the end. Yeah, that's
One
why a lot of
guy,
people are scared of doing it. Yeah.
one guy that came to mind was a young guy. He was much younger than me, and he was addicted to heroin. And he was a musician, and he was a good musician, but he'd sold his Fender Stratocaster to buy drugs. And so
Mm,
part of the therapy I did with him is I actually bought him a new Fender Stratocaster, so he could get back and play his music. The sad part about it is he sold it to buy drugs. Such is life, Such is life.
yeah, yeah. It's a tough one. Yeah, yeah. For me, it was different. For me, I got that ADD stamp in kindergarten, and I think I was self-medicating. That was my thing. Always calming the
What did you,
mind.
what did you get when you were in kindergarten? Sorry.
The ADD, the ADHD stamp,
Oh, I
like
have that.
hyperactive. Yeah,
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 I have ADHD. Yep, I was
yeah. Of
diagnosed with
course,
it.
of course.
What I learned is I learned how to use it to be
Mm,
successful. You
mm,
got to have a look at what I went into. I went into band booking before publishing, and that's go go go, something different every moment, which suits ADHD. And then I went into publishing, and I had some weeks 40 magazines running or periodicals running every week. There was so much to do. 35 salesmen, conmen, to deal with every day. There was so much on the go every moment that it suited my condition.
yeah, absolutely. No, I understand. But as I said, for me, like I was calming my mind down because I wanted to fit in, right? So
Ah,
especially in school, you see, and that's how it
yeah,
all started. Especially with alcohol. Alcohol was the biggest one for me. It was the hardest one to get rid of.
yeah. I
Yeah,
never wanted to fit in.
yeah,
I
yeah.
enjoyed,
Later, yeah, for
I
sure.
enjoyed being the rebel.
Yeah, yeah. Me too. Me too. But it was always this dichotomy, with China and not to, and but the subconscious, I think, wants to fit in. I think it's there somewhere. Yeah.
I basically did. You can't cure ADHD. That's not possible. You can take drugs, or you can learn to live in the moment. When you're
Yeah.
living in the present moment and you're not thinking, you can find peace from ADHD. And I've been living in the moment now for about 35 years. I don't live in the future. I don't live in the past. I'm here with you now, and I'm here. So the ADHD doesn't play up anymore, which is really good. My mind
Yeah.
is peaceful because it's silent.
That's amazing. Yeah, for me, it also changed once I was able to start meditating, and for that I had to get all the
Yeah.
substances out of the way. Then
Oh,
everything
heck yeah.
changed. Yeah, yeah,
Especially amphetamine.
mm. Yeah. Cocaine, alcohol was big. Yeah,
Oh, that'll do. Yeah. That'll make you
yeah,
very courageous, very
yeah,
brave.
yeah. It made me very calm. That was
I
a
did it.
that was
But
a
it also
yeah, it was a
makes you
crux.
your own hero.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I tried all the different drugs, basically because as a publisher, this will blow your mind. I was an anti-drug campaigner. This
Mm,
is before I took drugs. As a publisher, I was an anti-drug campaigner, and I used to put a journal out every week called Addicts, which went to
mm,
all the rehabilitation centres and all the doctors' surgeries in West Australia. And anytime a television station wanted to talk to someone about drugs, they'd come and visit me and ask me. And just because I put out this journal, and I'd talk on television about drugs. And there was this one occasion that they came to me because they were investigating ecstasy, and I just started taking it. And they came around, and I was actually on it, and I was telling them
okay.
how wonderful it was.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's great in the beginning for sure.
In
It's
the
amazing.
beginning, yeah, in the beginning.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like anything else, it can become addictive.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. And then you always need more and more, and yeah.
Yeah. How I got off it was interesting. I went to a party, and I was taking a fair bit of ecstasy, and I had taken a camera, a video camera, and someone turned the camera on me at like 2 in the morning, and my eyes were apparently rolling back in my head. And they showed me this video of me with my eyes rolling back in my head, and I went, "That's it, I'm out of here." And so I left that crowd completely, and I gave up ecstasy immediately, and I deleted that tape. It was terrible. It was
Yeah,
great
sometimes
to
we have to
think.
see that. Yeah,
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, I saw it and went, "Oh no, this is terrible."
yeah. So you talk about the seeker a lot, which interests me
Hmm.
because that word never came across my eyes, before listening to your content. And for the listener, what is it and who is he?
Okay. Yep. A
Yeah.
seeker is an investigator. A seeker doesn't believe the status quo. A seeker questions everything. And generally speaking, a seeker is looking for truth. And there's different truths. There's, what's happening in the world and the truth of what's happening in the world. There's also the truth of what we truly are. And in spiritual terms, it is understood in Hinduism and in Buddhism and a few other religions that we are not the mind, we are not the body, we are the pure awareness that is aware of it. And that is considered the truth. And this pure awareness can discover itself. And when it does, that's called Satori. And when it stays aware of itself continuously, it's called enlightenment. And that is what I got introduced to with Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, that understanding of what is the truth. And I became fascinated by it because I went and became a sannyasin to find out about this truth. And I ended up at the ranch in America, his ranch, and I ended up interviewing him because I was a journalist, and he blew my mind. And within a year and a half, I started having satori's where I started finding myself as the universe. And I was going, wow. That was why that was another reason why I walked in and gave my staff my companies, because I wanted to pursue that. I wanted to pursue heart, and I wanted to pursue enlightenment. And so I'd become a seeker, but a seeker who was really, really into it, like enthusiastic, a fanatic. And that took me down a lot of dark alleys. It took me into the darkness of my soul, the dark night of the soul, where I had to heal everything inside myself, because you can't be full of crap and expect God to live in you. And so I did that. I healed the wounds of my heart with therapy, with therapists, with teachers, not by myself. I was never that arrogant. Arrogance is a killer, destroyer of people.
Yeah, true. Yeah, a lot of similarities. Like also for me, like I had so many different people help me along the way, and I think without them wouldn't have been possible, and for sure not. But what is about like giving away that stuff, Because for me, money was never that driver for anything, especially my 20s. I kind of always had it and always went by, and now with children, now it's like I need it again in some way, because I need to provide. Right, like it's that weird shift again, right? And I would always go full risk with anything I was doing, like invest, like all in, and now everything kind of changed with that. Like, what do you think? Like, where's that middle way there?
Yeah, well, you've got to make money if you've got children, because you've got to pay for them. So that's why I went back and became a naturopath and psychotherapist, so I could make money, but also so I could be in service. So a couple of different things. But I homeschooled my children, and I had a clinic at home, so I didn't have to leave home, so I could be around my kids, because I didn't want to be like my parents, because I was just abandoned. I wanted to be there for my children, and so I was. And I still made money, because I was earning reasonably decent money as a naturopath and psychotherapist, but not enough to build a house, but enough to live nicely, And so I did. But money wasn't the goal, really. It was more success was the goal, success at what I was doing. And money is a byproduct of that, and money allows you to build things. It's just a tool.
Yeah. What is it about like us men trying to excel at something? Because like I have that same intrinsic, motivation. If I want to do something, I want to do it right, and I want to be really good at it. Like, where does that come from?
But you're programmed to do that at school. You're just running true to your default brainwashing.
Yeah.
We were all brainwashed at school to be ambitious. And the problem with ambition is it's discontentment. We're actually programmed to be unhappy. We're not programmed at school in any way, shape, or form to be happy. We're actually programmed to be unhappy. The more ambitious a person is, the more discontent they are. And discontentment is unhappiness. And it took me a while to see through that, because I was a very ambitious young man. But once I saw it, I went, what the heck am I doing? I've been brainwashed to do this crap? No, thank you. And so going back and becoming a naturopath and psychotherapist became my love affair with life, my love affair with human beings. And I did. I loved it. I loved being of help to others. It was a beautiful way to live. I couldn't find any purpose in life, but it seems like I gave myself a purpose, the purpose of the way of the heart, the purpose of helping people. And I got paid for it, which was a bonus.
Amazing. Yeah, I had this shift as well. Like, definitely it's happening right now. You know, I'm closing my companies and all that transactional stuff is going, and for sure it's pulling me into being of service. I mean, that's where it's going. But you talked about your children and homeschooling them, because I think that's the only way these days. Because I think, you know, when we talk about what can we actually change, it's just ourselves, and you know, we have some influence over the next generation.
Yep.
So
Well, they're going to go to school and they're going to be taught how to compete. And I see competition as against the heart. And some kids are going to win and some kids are going to lose. And the ones who lose are going to end up with low self-worth. I didn't want my children to go through that, so I didn't send them off to school. I homeschooled them and loved them instead.
I think it's the only way. We're doing it as well. I mean, my oldest is not even in at that age. He's 4 now, so I have some time left. But you know, already left.
I've got an intervention for the 4-year-old. This is an intervention for the 4-year-old, because the 4-year-old is going to need a dad until he's about 30. Now, the dad needs to stop smoking because the smoking is going to kill the dad, and the kid needs the dad to be alive and well. This is an intervention. Stop smoking. Do yourself a favor. Do your 4-year-old a favor.
I'm just smoking cigars, you know.
Yeah, that's what I used to smoke as well. That was the last thing I gave up, actually, smoking cigars. And I didn't give up for my children because I didn't have any at that stage. I gave up because I became a naturopath. And as a naturopath, how ridiculous to smoke. I'm teaching people how to be healthy and I'm smoking cigars. You got to be kidding. So I had to give up the cigars.
You really think it's that bad?
Well, let's put it this way. They have scientifically proven that nicotine takes down an enzyme that stops cancer growing in your lungs. And that's why you have all the labels on cigarettes, because they proved that in 1980s sometime. And it's true. You keep smoking, the chances are you're going to get lung cancer and throat cancer and tongue cancer. And I don't want to see that happen to you, because you sound like a good man. And you've got a 4-year-old to take care of who's going to grow to 40 at some stage. You'll be pretty old by then. But it doesn't matter. If you're alive, you can still take care.
Yeah. Whew, okay. Didn't expect that one. Yeah, it's you know, for me it's all about the dopamine. You know, it's that hormone that I, you know, have to kind of, you know, get in shape with and like work with. And the cigars is like one of these tools, you know, and the caffeine, where I'm still kind of, you know, working with, right? To
hang on a second. What's wrong with caffeine? Sorry. What?
No, nothing's wrong with caffeine. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're drinking water for sure.
I'm drinking coffee. No, it's coffee.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't know. Those two substances are still in my life, you know, out of all the other ones that I work through.
Yeah. You got to look at your responsibilities when you do drugs and when you do anything that's going to change your consciousness levels, because it may impact others. Particularly drugs.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the 4-year-old needs a straight dad.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Sorry that I turned the interview into an intervention, but I just couldn't help myself.
No, it's all good.
You're such a nice guy. You're such a nice
That's what you're here for. That's what you're here for.
That's true. That's actually what I'm here for.
So do you? Yeah, exactly. I'm all for it. You know, like if I love to listen to you speak anyways, and what you have to say. But Do you also work with homeopathy or?
No, I don't. I've never. No, not my cup of tea. I
Okay.
dealt with herbs and vitamins, and I worked with doctors. So I trusted doctors. I trusted allopathic medicine, which is normal medicine. I wasn't one of these cranks who thought that they were right just with herbs. I worked in doctors' clinics, and I just support anything that works, really. I'm totally pragmatic. If it works, it's
Yeah.
worthy. If it doesn't work, well, forget it. I'm not into smells and bells. If it's got any superstition attached to it or bells, I'm not interested. I'm into reality, what works.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But sometimes it just works temporarily, right? And then just in like in the first instance, and then you have the rebound, right? And then sometimes maybe the smooth
That's
kind
right.
of
That's
slow way
right.
works better, right?
So this interview, because we've got a copy of it, will be another intervention for one of my daughters who's vaping.
Okay.
So I'll use it for that as well. I'll say,
Yeah,
you
for
must
sure.
see this interview I did. And she'll watch
Yeah.
it and she'll see me talking about vaping again. It's like a reminder.
Okay. But what I also wanted to ask you before, and then when we were talking about the seeker, was you said that a lot of times they end up in religion. You know, because my mom, she pushed me in. Yeah, I was an altar boy when I was little, right? And I was
So
in
was
there,
I.
and
So was I.
yeah,
I was an older boy
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was in there, and it was always felt like something was wrong. You know, always saw these people. They always came back every week, and they were still sad. You know, nothing changed. You
No,
see,
I
and I
didn't
was
see
like,
it.
okay, well, something
I was in
something
love.
doesn't work out here.
I
Yeah.
was in love with Jesus. I just
Mm,
started to see through the Catholic Church when I started to realize the people that were representing it, the brothers and the
yeah.
priests, were hypocrites.
Yeah.
And when I was in boarding school, I got fiddled by one of them, which, is a no-no, real no-no. So it turned me against the church
Mm,
because the church didn't support me. It supported the brother that fiddled me.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I learned about that stuff like way too early, you know, like I I think started reading these books when I was 16, 17, and then geopolitics shortly after. And so once you smell the bullshit, you know, you have to go into these topics, at least people that want to, you know, find out stuff like us. I think it's
Yeah.
there's no way around it. Yeah.
Such is life.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Okay, so let's talk about the mind a bit. Because you like to think about it as well and understand it, and you say it's a prison.
Yeah. I don't think my mind is blank.
Yeah.
Um, we were taught at school to live in our heads, but before we went to school, we lived in reality. We weren't living in our heads yet. We went to school for 12 years and then maybe another 4 years at university. And what we got programmed to do was live in our minds, thinking and problem solving. My life was way too dangerous as a kid to do that. I had to live with reality. I had to have my awareness around me the whole time because I didn't put up with shit from anyone, and anyone who bullied me, and there was a lot of bullies in boarding school, got confronted by me. But I had to have eyes in
Mm.
the back of my head the whole time I was there because these bullies used to like to gang up. And so I developed present moment awareness while I was at school, and I maintained that for the rest of my life. I love being present. I love reality. I don't like dream. It's where people hurt themselves.
Mm. Yeah, happens for sure. So how can we work on that? Because you said like you're in a blank state often
Yeah,
or all the time. And
pretty much
what are
all the
some of the
time.
practices? Yeah, what are some of the practices that you would say, you know, that got you there? Maybe beginner level and then more advanced.
Yeah. Watching the breath, which is a standard meditation, just watching the breath come in through the nose, turn, go out through the nose. That works. But I used to do walking meditation. That's where I used to walk along the foreshore of the river or the ocean, and I watched my footfalls, how my feet were landing on the ground. I'd watch my breath at the same time. I'd listen to the surf, and I'd feel the sun on me. Now, when I had my awareness on that many things at once, I couldn't think. Otherwise, I'd lose awareness of those things. And so I used to walk for hours along the ocean front or along the river, what I called walking in Zen. It was my practice of being present, walking in Zen, simply being aware of everything around me and not entertaining the mind, not going into dreamland. I watch these other people walking and they're just locked in their minds, and it's like, what the hell are you doing out in nature, locked in your minds? It's beautiful out here. But you've got to be present to what's out here, not present to what you think, which is not real. Nothing you think is real, but out here is real. So it also helped training as a martial artist, because as a martial artist, if you're not present, you get your ass beaten pretty quickly. And so that helped too. Riding motorbikes, outrunning the police, you had to be very present to what was happening. You couldn't be dreaming.
Yeah. Okay. So those are some good practices then, for sure.
Well, we're talking about what I did to get out of ADHD, basically, because ADHD is living in your head, scrambled the whole time, and it's nice to be free. It's nice to be with reality rather than with dream. But that's up to you. Yeah.
So the practices, but we also talk about surrender. That's something that I learned these last couple years, getting better at it, let's say for 2 years. What would you say are some of the practices to get into that, into like more deeply?
Well, you got to look at what surrender is. It's a kind of a death, And when I was very young, I got my C-class diver's license, diving with tanks, underwater tanks. And I used to, off West Australia, there's a lot of sharks. And I was kind of terrified of sharks. And so every time I went out diving, I'd be frightened that I was going to get eaten by a shark. And so before I'd get in the water, I'd imagine the shark eating me and making it okay. So what I was doing is surrendering to my death. And that worked pretty well, because if I surrendered to being eaten by a shark, the fear dropped away, because the fear is empowered by resistance. When we surrender, the fear loses its power. And I used the same technique when I was training in martial arts. I made it okay to be beaten up. I made it okay to be hurt. I surrendered to it, which meant I could go into the ring fearless, which is always an advantage. Fear is the enemy. And so I learned to overcome fear through surrender to whatever I was frightened of, making it okay. And I practiced that my whole life. And as a result, I've had an absolutely amazing life, because I have never served fear. One adventure after the next adventure. Like right now, we're having an adventure, and it's cool.
Yeah. Silence and stillness.
Yep. Silence
follows the adventure. Yeah.
Well, I am in silence and stillness. It's beautiful. It's actually beautiful. People think there's nothing there, but it's just beautiful. It's like sitting on the top of the mountain, looking at everything. It's lovely. The clarity that comes with silence and stillness allows you to see everything so clearly.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I just moved. We left the city, as I told you before, and then we moved to a small island. So there's just right now it's silence and stillness all the time. Yeah, it was very crucial.
I got to tell you something. I like you. You're a nice man. I like you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I have to tell you, for some reason, I have let's say the guests that I choose usually, sometimes it's topic wise, but with you, it was different. I just felt, okay, we needed to talk, kind of pulled me into for some reason, and I just went with it. And then after I researched all your journey and all your life, and then I saw all these similarities, which was very interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you'd be an adventurer as well.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, doing podcasts
probably.
is an adventure, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the beginning was that I wanted to have some meaningful conversations still, because I would always be out and about in the city and events and talking to people. And then, moving to that island, I said, okay, how can I, still have a meaningful conversation here and there with someone that interests me? And that was kind
Hmm.
of how it started.
Yeah, but you made the adventure happen. You made it
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. This is the
Yeah.
way to squeeze the juice out of life rather than watching television.
Yeah. So 100%. I mean, I was lucky. We never had one when I was a kid. So
Well, life
never
be
had
out
one.
of it
Yeah.
is watching football on television, drinking beer.
Yeah. Doesn't get much worse than
You
that.
know? Exactly.
Yeah. What's your take on psychedelics and the teachers you had? Like, how was their relationship to it?
To what? Sorry, what was the
Psychedelics
question?
to psychedelics.
Psychedelics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried psychedelics, and what I found with them, because I was living in a place called Byron Bay, and what
Yeah.
I found with them is that if you surrender to the drug, it takes you further. Because any drug you take, you need more and more and more of it to work properly, because the mind defends itself against the drug. And I learned that if you surrender to the drug, you only need a small amount of it to actually go places. And so, in a way, taking psychedelics for me taught me more and more and more about surrender, because I was surrendering to the drug. I was living in Byron Bay on the east coast, and it was everywhere. It was growing in the cowpats. The mushrooms were growing in the cowpats. And so psychedelics were everywhere. Um, Once again, they're addictive. Like people think they're medicine. Bullshit, they're addictive. They change your consciousness levels and they become addictive. What I saw was that I could actually learn surrender, and surrender is the key to higher consciousness. People go study this guru, that teaching, another teaching. No amount of knowledge ever set anyone free. No amount of knowledge ever healed a wound of the heart. Unconditional surrender is the key. That's all you need to learn in this life to go to the highest heights, to
Mm.
enlightenment. Unconditional surrender. And anything that can teach you it is your friend. And so anybody that annoys you, pisses you off, is your friend, because you can learn to surrender to that. That they're setting it up for you. They're your
Mm.
teacher.
And it will always come back until you learn.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Yeah, I think so too. If I think back on my experiences with psychedelics, it was for sure surrender. Definitely the last experience. I took iboga, which is the African tree,
Yep.
and that was definitely full surrender experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never tried that because that came
Yeah.
relatively recently to Australia. My drug
Mm.
taking was so long ago. It was before Enlightenment.
Yeah.
It was way, way, way before.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay.
But
Well, thanks a lot for your time.
yeah, it's nice to
I think
talk
it's
to
a
you.
beautiful ending.
Yeah,
Likewise. Yeah, I mean,
I
I'm all for it. We can always do that. Like anytime, anytime.
I have a question of you. Is
Yeah,
it
sure.
okay
Of course.
inside your head, inside your mind right now? What's happening?
Yeah.
What's happening inside your head right now?
Um, I'm actually very still. Like it's
Yes.
a weird morning. Like I haven't slept a lot because like my kids they're like detoxing, sniffles and stuff.
But you're
So
going into story now. What's in your head right now?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was a bit weird because it was difficult for me to get into the conversation because of that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
But
now
hang.
I just wanted to end it. I just
I
wanted
wanted
to end
to,
it. And I said it was a beautiful ending. That was
I
what
wanted
was
to
going
show
through my
you
head.
something.
Okay.
The
Okay.
stillness in your mind is caused by you talking to someone who's enlightened.
Yeah.
And this is the gift of enlightenment. The people who talk to me lose their minds. they start finding that beauty of stillness, that beauty of silence. And you are so welcome.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's
Thank
true.
you.
It's absolutely true. I mean, do you feel like sometimes it gets draining on your end when you give too much peace to other people?
No,
Because it's
I
like
am the sky.
it's your Buddha field, right?
I experience myself as the sky, not as a human being. I am the
Okay.
sky. I'm everything.
Okay, so it's endless. Okay.
It's endless. Yep, infinite.
Yeah. Okay, beautiful. All right, thank
Mm.
you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode to the end. If you got any value out of this, please like and subscribe or share it with a friend. This would help the channel a lot. Thank you for that. And I hope I will see you on the next one.